All right. Hey, y'all. It's Nisha the Soul Magi, and I'm back with another video. And because we're all new here, I'm actually going to reintroduce myself. I am Nisha, and the Soul Magi is my journey. The Soul Magi slash Nomadic Nisha is my journey across the world as I reconnect with my soul and myself and some of my favorite healing modalities all around the world. I'm currently in India and I love it. I'm learning so much here and remembering. So, a little bit about me is I am an oracle reader, I am a divine channel. I'm also a licensed therapist and a coach, a life coach slash spiritual advisor. And today I want to spend some time talking about finding the right fit for you on your healing journey, whether that be with a therapist like me or with a life coach or a spiritual advisor. Remember, anything that I say here is not a determinant of therapy. It's not a substitute for therapy by any means, or um, you are in control of your journey and you connect to what you feel. So take that as you need it. But a conversation I've been hearing a lot as we get into it is about having a therapist versus a coach. And I figured like we might need to break this down a little bit so that we can connect to it in the best possible ways. I personally agree that you should choose whatever modality fits your healing style. Nobody's healing style is the same. Some people need a therapist and some people need a life coach. Some people need a spiritual advisor and some people need all three or both of them. It really just depends on you. And one thing I don't see a lot of people talking about is the ways to choose the right type of healer. Honestly, as a licensed therapist, I see the benefit for both. So today I want to talk about the difference in the two. Okay, let's get into it. The difference between a therapist and a life coach. And I'm just going to lump life coaches in with spiritual advisors and all of those things because they have more specific niches. But a therapist is usually someone who is clinically trained, right? So this might be a psychologist, a psychoanalyst, a psychotherapist, and they're usually clinically trained to treat psychological problems, bipolar disorder, anxiety, depression, any of those things, right? And like the smaller things too, like OCD or any of those things. So they treat disorders more so, right? And then every therapist usually has their niche or whatever they prescribe to. And life coaches, they are usually people who counsel clients on specific matters, right? They usually have very clear niches, right? If you get a spiritual advisor, they might be someone who is really good at self-confidence. So they do a lot of mirror work and beauty imaging. If you have a career life coach, then they're going to teach you how to step in your power and step into the next level. I've even seen people with life coaches for public speaking and just general happiness. And those look a lot different from the therapy space. Not to say that your therapist couldn't incorporate both in them, but depending on how that looks, that may look different upon their style. You actually might need, you might need different styles for different things in your life. I'll get back to that later. This is my favorite therapist versus life coach. And I think this is so monumental in us just taking time in this. Like a therapist is, again, going to treat mental health disorders. They usually have a degree and are licensed in that, and they have ethical codes and like legal obligations that they have to follow. Sometimes they work with insurance companies and sometimes they're private pay, but You definitely have that aspect of it. They're HIPAA, they have to be HIPAA compliant. And then with a life coach, they may help with coping skills in treating mental health, but they aren't going to diagnose you. There aren't really any formal qualifications or education behind it. Um, they're not required to follow the same laws or ethics codes that we are. And they usually, what I love about life coaches and spirituality coaches and all of that good stuff is the fact that they usually have a unique life experience that adds to the way they're able to help and motivate you to get to your goals. And I think I really love that. The other thing I want to add in this is the fact that um, I'm going to come back to it. All right. So, how do you know it's time for you to get into connection with a therapist or a life coach? And here are 6 of my favorite ways to tell, right? So, if you notice that your mood has changed and it's not for the better, it's time for you to check in, right? Like you're consistently irritable and you're usually really happy. Maybe you had a huge loss of energy and you're just feeling a little bit lethargic, a little bit depressed, like, mark that down as one of the reasons to go see somebody. If you're high on stress or anxiety, if you are a creative and you no longer are interested in the work that you're doing, if you are blocked consistently creatively, and I'm not talking about writer's block or painter's block or whatever. If you feel disconnected to your sacral chakra, that's it. If you are not content with anything, I think that's the big one as well. And then also, if you are having dreams about work outside of work, or you can't stop thinking about work outside of work, find somebody immediately. If you have trouble focusing, that's one of the biggest things I see. If you have trouble focusing or you start to notice a lot of memory loss and you're unable to really connect to the things that you're doing, there's a sign that it might be time for you to explore some new avenues outside of yourself and get some coping skills and see what that really looks like for you. All right, now this part I call finding the right fit. How do you know if you need a life coach or if you need a therapist? First of all, that only depends on you. And one of the things I want to say is finding the right fit is so crucial to your healing experience. There is a certain amount of safety and peace in having someone in your support network who understands you. Like the feeling is unmatched. I can't even describe it. It'll give you confidence and peace like you haven't experienced before. On the other hand, having someone who's not compatible with you can be detrimental and it can be harmful. And some of the other things that we just talked about in my last previously, like irritability or feeling, depressed, can just accentuate those symptoms. So it's really, really important that you get very clear on what it is that you need. And also, like, my other piece of advice in this place is to think of finding a coach or a therapist, kind of like finding a partner or a new best friend, right? Like when you are getting to know someone, you take steps to get to know them, right? And not everybody makes the cut for whatever reason, whether it be communication, whether it be values, whether it be, honestly, schedules. I've had a lot of people I couldn't take on that were amazing fits, but I'm 10 hours ahead. And if you can't meet during a certain time, I can't do nothing for you. As a therapist. Now, as a life coach, we can wiggle a little bit. Right? Because I have a little bit more autonomy on when I can meet and what I can do and all of those things. And so I wanted to give you guys 3 tips on making sure you find the right fit. So one of the things that I always think of is the first and foremost, which is make sure that you have clarity on what the issue is, right? And that doesn't mean you have to have awareness into the problem as a whole. So, like, if you know that you're feeling irritable, um, what do you want from that? Do you just want to stop feeling irritable, or do you want to know where the root causes of this came from? So also be willing to decide what it is that you are going to connect to in this space. Is it I want tangible tools for me to take and I want this experience to be a little bit quicker, to help me manage my irritability and irritation and anxiety throughout the day? Or do I want to know what in my childhood contributed to this so that it doesn't show up again? Right. And then you get the coping skills and everything too. So that's really up to you as to how you want to do that. My other thing is I want you to think about what you need from this space, from this healing space, because obviously you know that something is going on and you're not exactly feeling connected to it. You're not exactly feeling the way you would like to. So, what is it that you want from this healing experience? Do you want someone to dig deeper? Are you looking for more of just, hey, I want tangible skills to coach me through this life transition? I don't necessarily want to dig up all of my pasthood trauma. That's totally fine too. Maybe you just want someone to talk to, right? So maybe you are looking for a therapist and you just want someone to talk to and you just need someone who's going to listen. Then you probably want you a person-centered therapist. That would be the best fit for you. But if you are looking for someone who has expertise in specific niches, like prime example, people who are into African traditional religions and theological and subscribe to different versions of religion and spirituality, you might want a very specific kind of therapist, right? And you also have to decide, are the things that I do spiritually in my personal self-care life, are those things that I'm going to be talking about in therapy? Because if you are, you want to make sure you have a therapist who's a good fit for that. Someone who doesn't think you're in psychosis because you're talking about literally a dream that you had of a loved one who passed away. You also might want to be clear on what kind of therapist you want. Maybe you're a mixed race and you want someone who understands where you're both parts of your identity. Maybe you want someone who is a separate race from you, to give you an outside perspective of the inside of your life. I don't have a lot of experience with that because I don't know nothing about that lifestyle. But there's that. Be clear on what you want. And then also I would also ask you to have a little awareness. Maybe do a self-assessment before you get in. How do you communicate with people? And how do you need other people to communicate with you? If you know that you don't like someone who is really aggressive when they speak, or very, I'm not going to say aggressive, I don't like that word, I'm going to say assertive, then that may be something that you need to talk to your life coach about or your therapist about. Because if you're getting information for your healing process and it's not resonating because of the tone or because of something else, then that's a conversation that you need to have with them, right? That's a safe place to go. Because, yeah. Okay. My other thing is, do not hesitate to ask your life coach, your therapist, your chosen healer questions about their treatment and how they plan to treat you. Like, it is absolutely okay to ask them what they plan to do, right? And it's not what they plan to do, because if you're coming to them and you're paying money, you better be doing some work too. Um, and that's just my personal thing. If you're not ready to work, then you know, maybe see somebody a little different. But ask them, what's your style? How do you plan out each session? Is everything off the cusp? Like, maybe you don't have a lot of self-awareness about your habits. So ask them how they navigate that in a situation. Do not be scared to ask them questions, because if you don't take sole proprietorship over your journey, nobody will, boo boo. You'll be looking like boo boo and the fool. That's not hot. You can also ask questions like, have you ever worked with a specific kind of trauma before? And they might tell you, oh, I've worked with, substance abuse, blah, blah, blah. And that's not exactly your trauma, and if you feel like it doesn't relate, say that. Also, you can ask questions like, I'm really into spirituality and I practice X, Y, and Z. I want to know, are you comfortable with working with me? Even though this is how I show up in my personal life, if I need to discuss these things, is that something you're comfortable discussing? If they say no, and you know that you're into traditional religions and other things of that sort, run, baby. That's not for you. That's not for you. I don't know. Focus on the other issues. That ain't it. Right? Because having someone who doesn't understand your personal practice can really do a number on your psyche. I'm not kidding. Also, here's a question that I really love to ask. Is it okay for me to give you feedback on what I liked and disliked? That lets you know how open your healer is to you, right? Whether you're learning Reiki, whether you're doing life coaching, therapy, asking them if they are open to feedback lets you know how safe you are going to be to express differences and things. And that is crucial to have in a relationship, because understand, in all of these relationships where you are learning or you're healing or you're growing, there's a different power dynamic. So if you are able to safely and effectively communicate your needs, it is going to do wonders. But if you have someone who isn't open to those things, then we can talk about how to approach that. Get somebody who's well versed in people who's like you. My last tip for finding the right fit is literally to find someone who feels safe to your nervous system. And if you don't know what that is, keep working until you do. I got some tasks for you. I'll do it in another video. Yeah. Remember, your therapist isn't a mind reader. Your healer is not a mind reader, even if they're clairvoyant, clairaudient, all of that. You have to speak up and be present over your journey. This is your life to take complete ownership over. So you need to be unapologetic about what you need in the therapy space, what you need in your healing environment. Can't nobody make that decision but you. All right. The last one is signs that your healer isn't working, isn't aligned with you. And there could literally be so many different things for why it's not working. And the first thing I always say is check yourself. By all means, check you first. So if you are in therapy or coaching or any type of healing, especially spiritual advisor, if you don't see any progress, I encourage you to check yourself. Is there resistance, right? Reevaluate your role. Be honest with yourself about how you're showing up. Are you defensive? And if you are, that's totally fine. Why? Is it because you don't feel safe, or is it because you talked yourself into feeling safe because you're comfortable with them? Only things you know the answer to, right? Figure out what's contributing to this. If you consistently feel worse, there is like a normal, I would say, vulnerability hangover that comes with being in the therapy space. But if you notice that this is consistent, talk to them about it. Like if it's consistent and you're dreading the next therapy appointment and you've talked to them about it and there still isn't any changes about it, because it's probably not in the best alignment. If it doesn't feel good to you, if it doesn't feel good to you, then it's not good for you. You know what's up. By all means, trust your entire gut. A couple of other things that I heard about in sessions. If your healer is gaslighting you, ghosting is a big one that I've heard in coaching therapy, and I haven't heard so much of because we have, again, ethical guidelines, but I have seen this a lot in coaching and in spiritual advisements where, like, let me get a little closer. Why have you not seen your coach in 3 months and y'all have an active plan to work together? Why have you not seen them? Without notice. If they took a break and told you about it, that's fine. But if they haven't told you that they're taking a break from you, that's abandonment. Next caller, for real, like literally next call. Last but not least, I want to say this about my people that value coaching and healing and more traditional methods, whatever you want to call it. It's honestly the same thing. We just come at it from different angles, right? Different angles and different accents. And the last thing I really want to say on this is, like, a healer can only take you as deep as they are willing to go themselves. That's the same thing with your therapist. If you know that you are in the deep and you think about things more exponentially, more spiritually, and they're on a surface level with you because that's not the framework that they work from as a therapist, pack it up. Pack it up. Literally. I know it is annoying to go through that process of finding another therapist, finding another somebody that you tell your story to, but at the same time, like, what are you really getting if you're staying on the surface besides convenience? And I didn't know that we was choosing convenience over purpose. I didn't know that. So that might be something that you want to look into. If you have a therapist and you've said that, oh, I'm really into meditation, and they're not a meditative person, or whatever, you might want to start researching what kind of therapist would be best for you. Like, would you need an experiential therapist? Would you need a Jungian therapist, someone who subscribes to that field? That I've seen that work for a lot of spiritual people because they can understand the context that they're talking on and they have an active framework for it. So there's that. And like I said, I know it's annoying to restart that process and choose someone else, but it's also annoying being out of purpose. I don't know if you guys have ever experienced that, but would not recommend. -1,000,000 out of 10. But that's just my personal tips for finding a therapist, a healer, a life coach that is in alignment with you guys. Please let me know how you like this video. And I can't wait to come back and talk to you guys more.